Hi, my name is Maureen. I've been a full-time model for 2 years now, and today I want to talk about some of the non-glamorous things in the modeling industry. Before I get into it, I do want to preface this by saying that I love my job. Not a single day that goes by that I'm not incredibly grateful to be able to be modeling full-time. It's a huge privilege to be able to do that, and I am by no means complaining. I'm just shedding light on some of the things that you might not know if you are new to the industry or if you're someone that's outside of modeling. So first, I want to talk about financial instability. Even as someone who is now modeling full-time, there are weeks where I'm working almost every single day. There are other weeks where I'm not working at all. Another thing that people outside of the industry may not know and find really shocking is that it can take up to 90 days or more for models to get paid. In fact, I personally have a client who owes me thousands of dollars from 3 years ago. Another thing about modeling is that even though travel costs are sometimes covered, you often have to upfront a lot of those costs on your own, and then you'll get reimbursed after. So there is some level of a financial safety net that I think it's smart to have going into the industry. Everyone's financial situation is different. Everyone's level of risk that they're comfortable taking on is also different. Some people get support from their parents. I personally didn't have that, so I did have to build myself a financial safety net for a couple years before I knew that I could comfortably pursue modeling full time. Even if you've been in the industry for a couple years, you've worked with a lot of major clients, there's no guarantee that you're gonna have a consistent stream of income. And just because you've worked with a client once and you've made a good impression, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're gonna keep rebooking you. There are certain clients that just constantly like to switch up their models and work with different people all the time. And on the other hand, if you're lucky, there are certain clients that will wanna book the same models over and over again. So with modeling, you have a very unpredictable schedule. There are times where I find out about bookings literally the night before. I'm given less than 12 hours to prepare for a shoot the next day. Also in this industry, you're not necessarily working traditional work hours. I've had to do overnight shoots where your call time and your breakfast starts at midnight. I've also had instances where I'm working through the weekend and all of my friends are off. And there are other instances where all my friends are working Monday through Friday, and that's technically my weekend. And if you're lucky enough to be traveling a lot for work, another challenge could just be jet lag, inconsistent sleep schedule, inconsistent routine, you're not getting to work out or eat healthy regularly. But with all of those inconsistencies, you still have to learn how to maintain your health and be at your best at all times. You never know when you're gonna get a phone call or email about a job. Next, I wanna talk about some unideal work environments. I've had situations where I've had makeup artists use dirty tools on my face, and as someone with very sensitive and acne-prone skin, my skin will react right away. I've also had instances where I go into a casting, say for like a swim or lingerie brand, and they're having the same pieces of undergarments tried on by every model. You don't know what other people's level of hygiene is. Luckily, I've never had some type of infection from that situation. Another thing, constantly getting your hair and makeup done. There are a lot of hairstylists that do not care to protect your hair at all. They don't use heat protectant, and they will just burn your hair off, fry your hair off, and straighten your already straight hair. I've also had way too many instances where I've had to wear shoes that are either way too big or way too small, but you have to make it work. As a model, you're kind of this blank slate, literal human mannequin, and because of that, you have no say in your hair and makeup. 99% of the time, I'm cool with that because I realize that that's what my job is as a model. I'm not here to give my opinion on what I think the hair, makeup, styling should be. I'm simply here to help bring the vision to life. However, I will say, there are a lot of makeup artists out there that do not know how to do makeup on Asian people. I also feel like a lot of my friends with darker complexions have had instances where makeup artists simply don't have the right shade for them. I've also had friends who have different hair textures with hairstylists that don't know how to work with curly hair. Next one is pretty obvious, but because it is an appearance-based industry, there is a lot of pressure when it comes to your physical appearance. Your weight, your skin, your hair is constantly monitored by your agencies. If you have any changes that you want to make to your physical appearance, say a hair color change or a haircut, you have to get it approved by your agencies first. Another thing that you might not know, especially if you're not in the industry, is that you can't really get your nails done. You really just want to keep it as natural as possible. I think for me, one of the most shocking experiences when I first started modeling is going into a casting, stripping down to basically your undergarments and getting measured in front of everyone, which I know is very common in the industry, but when I first started, it was a little jarring. So if you are interested in pursuing modeling, I think it's super important to be comfortable and confident in your own skin. Lastly, it is the illusion versus reality gap that I think is one of the most unglamorous things of this glamorous industry. You're definitely going to be hearing more no's than yeses, and that's not a bad thing. That is just the nature of the industry. And I have met so many models that on paper, on Instagram, look like they live this glamorous life, and they have all of these highlights working with dream clients and huge designers, but in reality, they are struggling. When you see the highlights of someone's career, just remember that that is a small fraction of their day-to-day experience. Also, a huge misconception is that doing runway is super glamorous, which in some ways it is, but in terms of pay, it is not. Without naming exact numbers, let me just say, I have made 5 times more shooting for a client like Walmart than walking runway for a major designer. And while the things that I've shared might be a little bit jarring or shocking, this is not to discourage you from modeling, because I genuinely do love my job. I just wanted to shed some light on some of the non-glamorous things, especially if you're new to this industry. It can be super helpful to see the reality.